Oh, okay. Should be good to go. Wonderful. I'll call to order the October 10th Edmonton City Council special meeting in the bracket room. So to hello all those here and virtually. Roll call, Mr. Clerk. Councilmember Teitzel. Here. Councilmember Chen. Yeah. Councilmember or President Tibbet. Here. Councilmember Buckschness. Here. Councilmember Olson. Here. Councilmember Payne. Here. Councilmember Nan. Here. And Mayor Nelson. Here. All members are present. Excellent. Next item is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Council President.
We'd like to move the item 5.1 to become a business item and be 6.3.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I have a question.
Councilmember Olson.
Are we allowed to do action?
This would not be an action, this is a discussion.
Oh, okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item is audience comments. Where are we getting audience comments?
Okay.
Just put it in already, and I'll just time it over here on my phone.
Okay, great. So we'll have, the city clerk will be doing the timekeeping. You'll have 3 minutes and you'll get a 30-second warning from Mr. Passy. And we'll start with those who have signed in. Do we have signage? Oh, sorry.
This is from September 19th.
Yeah, that's not.
No one.
So if you wish to make an audience comment, if you please approach the podium.
Evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Jim Oganowski, a resident of Edmonds. And you kind of preempted me by doing exactly what I was here to advocate for, was to get the receipt for filing August financial statement for discussion. Because as you'll see, I hope tonight, that as you understand and discuss it, you'll see the financial situation that's emerging in the city. And especially that was in essence confirmed by the budget that this year we're headed in toward having to declare a fiscal emergency by being under our fund balance policy requirements. So I hope that's part of the discussion today. You look at that, obviously take it seriously. And because the projections show that we're using emergency funds, the council is required to authorize the expenditure of emergency funds for the use to satisfy expenditures of the general fund. So basically, I mean, thanks for including that on the agenda tonight. Looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Any other audience comments?
Good evening. My name is Clara Cleveland. I'm here to speak for, I'm hoping that we'll get a climate action person on our council so that they can literally have, all they have to do is work on our climate and making sure that Edmonds aren't cutting down lots of trees, which contributes to climate, collapsing, etc. Let me think. I wrote this down. I am doing this especially for my grandchildren and our children and our children's children. I became concerned when I read Naomi Klein's book. This changes everything. Mm-hmm. So I was going to bring this to you. Anyway, one of the actions that I took, I was part of Bill Cuban's Break Free in 2016. One of the actions I took was I slept on the tracks on Highway 20 to stop the trains from going to Sorrells Shell's refinery. And of course, actually, we had people that made sure the trains were coming. I didn't do that, but anyway, I really think we need a full-time manager that's not distracted by anything else but keeping our climate and keeping our trees, because that helps reduce the carbon, et cetera. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
Any other audience comments? All right, let's go to the virtual world. If you are on a smartphone, tablet, computer, laptop, raise your virtual hand, or if you're on a landline, press *9. And I'll look to you, Mr. Passy, to see if there's any virtual hands up.
We have minutes, so I think it's probably Finis Tupper. I will unmute.
And Finis, if you can hear us, you can begin your audience comment.
He is unmuted.
Finis, we can't hear you if you're talking. So we can hear other folks that are online, but unfortunately we can't seem to be hearing you right now. Well, let's come back to him. Who's the next person?
It's the only person with their hand raised.
So Finis, we can't hear you. Any other suggestions, folks? You can come back next. All right, so not seeing any other virtual hands up, we'll go ahead and move on to next item on the agenda, which is council business. We have 3 items. First is repeal of ordinance number 4079, Highway 99 action. Is that Councilmember Buckshins?
Yes, and sorry I can't be there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very complex topic. I'm trying to be very succinct. I've been working on this for over a month. I've probably spent about 150 hours now, and I appreciate all the citizens that have written in to myself, to Councilmember Chen, well, actually most all the council members, because they've copied me on them and their responses. So I think we're pretty clear on the subject topic tonight, and so I'll just go into brief details. In 2017, 3 ordinances were put together. 4077 was for putting the Highway 99 subplan into the comprehensive plan. 4078 took 9 business and residential subdivision or subdistricts, subzones, BD zones, and made them all CG. And then 4079 created a planned action ordinance. Now, a planned action ordinance had never come forth before City Council. If you look at the minutes I put in the agenda, there was a lot of discussions about it, but basically the planned action ordinance required a planned action environmental impact statement. And that environmental impact statement covered the actual, the sub area. And if you had a chance to read the EIS, it's very informative. It gives you kind of a futuristic model of projections for housing, zoning, employment, different things that would make up what should be done And then the city also was to put through in traffic and land use. But the city then was also to provide an ordinance that captured all of the things that needed to be done to make this planned action move forward, in that then developers did not have to complete a SEPA requirement. And a SEPA requirement basically is each large development has to have an EIS statement. So this pretty much just streamlined that. And that's why it was called a planned action ordinance on this planned action area. And last year, in July, Kern and Lean brought it forward for a filing for review, and council pulled it and asked for a full presentation. In October, we had a full presentation, and council decided that we would do a SEIS, which is a supplemental environmental statement, to update all of the issues that had occurred since 2017. And if you think about it, many things have occurred. There's been multimodal transportation, we had the pandemic, we had new stormwater code, we had multifamily design standards that haven't been done, we had a new housing commission that provided all kinds of new ideas for zoning, housing design, things of that nature. So the vote was 4-3 to have the SEIS completed. And then this year, the administration came forth and decided that we would do a citywide EIS. And therefore the SEIS, or the supplemental environmental impact statement, just for the sub area, would have been pushed off till 2025. So this repeal basically is moving the SEPA process back to putting it in the hands of the developer, and that all they have to do now is, rather than have the streamlined process of being part of this planned action ordinance, they will just comply with doing a normal SEPA process, which all other developers do throughout the city. And I think I brought up some very interesting reasons why. And if you think about it, common sense will tell you that the environment today is completely different than the environment in 2017. And I also, if you look at attachment 5, I provided a more detailed list of some of the issues that I saw that were noted. One being that the critical area recharge or aquifer code has yet to be developed, and it is being developed, but that is instrumental for some of these large projects that are going in. And then, as you saw, we had to do an emergency moratorium for the step backs. And that was because we had not provided sufficient design standards. So I think it's time that we just allow this repeal to go through, allow the citizens of Highway 99 to rest assured that we will allow the developments that come forth to do a normal EIS procedure. And in that regard, then when the citywide EIS is done, future councils can decide if they want to bring back this planned action ordinance. And I do provide reasons that if it does come back, what should happen in terms of alternatives and things of that nature. Anyway, I would like to request that the council support me in this repeal. Thank you.
Councilor Rolls.
Yes, thank you. For starters, I would really like to thank Councilmember Buchness. She has worked an extraordinary amount of time on this subject and has done a lot of research and did address and much simplify the original documentation that was with this so that we could really wrap our heads around it and get it. I think this was a very complex topic, and there was a lot to absorb about what was done and why, what has changed, and what we might want to be doing going forward. There was one thing mentioned that I don't think was fully accurate, at least I want to check my understanding, and that was that it wasn't necessarily planned that there would be an SEIS after the city comp plan with the citywide EIS. The idea was that that would be sufficient because we were building an extra emphasis for that 99 sub area. But to the point that Councilmember Butchness made, it remains to be seen, and we can readdress and either do it at that point or, know that we don't need to do it. So in any case, I think the points that were made in the agenda memo were points that were super relevant to me regarding, some of the changes, the Kara one being one of them that I've followed closely. And personally, I do, at this moment in time, I think that this is the right move for us. So that was my comment, and I'm listening to others.
Councilor Teitzel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do agree, there have been a lot of changes since 2017, we took this up initially. And one thing that Councilmember Butchins didn't mention were the housing density bills that came out this year, not the least of which is Housing Bill 1110. And in Ordinance 4079, there's a goal of 3,325 residential dwelling units to be added in the sub area. With the density bills, there's going to be a lot more distribution of that density around town. And so that's one of the critical issues we need to consider. That likely is not the correct number any longer. What should that number be? That's going to take some thought on our part and on staff's part. So I do agree. There's been a sea change in many ways since we did this work in 2017. And I think it's time to repeal this and start over. I do have one question for Mr. Teraday. Mr. Teraday, we do have the sub-area plan that we created, and there's really three legs to the stool. There's ordinance 47, 40, 77, 78, and 79. By repealing 79, does that completely obviate the sub-area plan in some way or not?
No, it does not. The 4077 and 4078 continue to function, they remain in effect. Even in the event that 4079 is repealed. So they stand independently.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a couple of questions. And I guess it would probably be more to Director McLaughlin. So when we look at the planned action, the EIS statement that's in place now, what are going, if this is repealed, what are going to be some of the impacts? The impacts, in my mind, are going to be some of the things that you've identified in your planning document that you sent along. And it's going to be some difference in how the developers are impacted, and then also how the treatment of the EISs are for each development that happens. Is that about correct? And so what do we know that's kind of in the hopper? I know that we've got what, 14 months left before our comp plan's going to be done. And how will that all kind of merge together if we do repeal 4079?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council and Councilmember Payne. That's a robust question. So first off, unpacking it, acknowledging that this is complex. It has multiple documents that we're talking about, and all within fairly recent, from a planning timeframe, right? Not necessarily as many people would call 2017 recent, from a planning trajectory that's still pretty recent, when developments kind of rely on codes and policies and documents to guide multi-million-dollar projects, that certainty that they rely on. But I will say that a couple of things. One, how will it change? One, as written in the memo, which was informed by our environmental consultant Herrera, who's working on the comprehensive plan. One of the benefits of a planned action is the certainty for the developer, right? Where that the environmental analysis has already been done up front. That provides certainty. But what it does for the city is it also provides us the cumulative analysis for understanding the impacts that will happen with the development if we see it at that magnitude over time. So we can anticipate, right? We can be certain that, for instance, some of the relevant comments that were made around step backs was brought up, right? The environmental document did analyze step backs thoroughly in the DEIS and into the FEIS. We know that at an individual project level, it would not still deemed to be a significant impact, and we would not see that mitigated whether we repealed the the planned action or whether we kept it. And so the reality is that we know that even at a cumulative scale, these private developments were considered for impacts. And not a lot were actually realized in mitigation measures, as we can see from the FEIS. When it's done, if we repealed the planned action, projects would do individual environmental analysis, but it wouldn't elevate, as at least from Herrera's perspective, and this is our environmental consultant, and from my own experience, it wouldn't elevate to an EIS. It's very, very, very unlikely that an individual project would trigger an EIS. It would still do a SEPA checklist, and even that, given our thresholds, it's unlikely that we'd see significant environmental impacts. Now, I'm speculating. I'm speculating. But the benefit of having a cumulative analysis is that we have some certainty on the environmental impacts that we're anticipating. Now, there's been changes. People have said this since 2017. There's been changes, sure. But the only changes that would be relevant in this discussion are changes that have significant adverse impacts that were not anticipated. The example is the CARA. The CARA will actually, by passing the CARA ordinance, we're actually decreasing the actual environmental impacts that would be associated with private development. That would not trigger an SEIS. That would negate the need for an SEIS. We're lowering the impacts. So a lot of these things that we have done and we have yet to do, I'm going to stop talking soon, like the multimodal level of service, for instance, has been brought up a couple of times. If we repeal 4079 today, we do not have a multimodal level of service in place. And so what we would do on an individual project level is we would analyze traffic impacts as we traditionally have based on level of service. And if we would mitigate anything, it would be developers making capacity improvements. Right? And so what we've said all along is, I want to dig into the analysis. I want to understand what is deficient in the sub-area plan and in the corresponding environmental document. We want to listen to community members, we want to talk it out, and we want to understand the problem statements very explicitly. And we want our environmental team, as part of the comprehensive plan, to analyze that, to see what the best vehicle is moving forward. Is it to mitigate through the comprehensive plan EIS? Or is it to do some level of supplementary addendum to address it that way? But without getting into the analysis and understanding explicitly what the problem statements are, the risk is abandoning the 4079 prematurely and not really have any level of kind of cumulative analysis that we adhere to.
The last bit was, do you have anything in the pipeline right now?
In terms of pipeline.
In the sub area for SR 99 sub area for development.
Oh, for development, not formally in the pipeline. At a pre-development stage.
Okay, more than one?
One.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Chen.
Thank you. I think I have a similar question is this a repeal and replace with something, or is this just a repeal? I think you already kind of touched on, if I understand your statement earlier correctly, is this just a repeal and nothing to replace? So if an individual project come forward, what standard do we go by?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Chan. And I should have mentioned this, that each project today is still required to do a SEPA checklist. I want to make sure everyone understands that. If they don't get completely out of the environmental analysis. Each project, even under the planned action, does a SEPA checklist. If their impacts go beyond what was anticipated in the planned action, they still would need to mitigate for those. So I hope that answers your question. But it would be a question for Councilmember Bakshis in terms of repeal. I mean, my answer would be absolutely, if we repeal, we just don't have that environmental document that looks at the cumulative impacts. And what we also have is that lacking the certainty for the developers that, you know, that then they don't know what they're anticipating with environmental impacts at
Right,
the private level.
I appreciate Councilmember Basni's hours of work and try to repeal this and try to get rid of something that's not as relevant today as it was in 2017. But if developers, individual developments come and submit an application and they don't know what to expect. So the individual buildings reviewing approval is kind of depending on the staff's professional judgment. So they don't have something to rely on, so that might raise some questions for the developer. That's my only concern. If we repeal it and we don't have anything to replace it. So that's my slight concerns. And maybe Councilmember Basnis can explain how we're gonna handle that.
Maker of the motion.
Sure. Well, first of all, I have to disagree a little bit with what Director McLaughlin made. With the SEPA checklist, if in fact something goes out of line, it does trigger an EIS. And I think with the Fantasia site, which is like 4 warehouses and 8 buildings, it will definitely, and in a critical area, it will definitely require an EIS. Will we have, Councilmember Chen, that's correct. They do SEPA checklists. If something is out of order that they don't, the SEPA official responsible officer feels that it needs to be further investigated, it will happen. But this is something that all developers in all parts of any city have to go through. This is the same process. The planned action ordinance was extremely unique. In fact, in today's world, the environmentalists are saying not to do it because the environment is changing so much. And like Councilmember Teitzel brought up, with Housing Bill 1110 coming forward, that is going to put a whole barrage of more housing into that sub area. And the EIS covers the entire city. It does not concentrate on that particular sub area. So I don't believe that that would be a way to handle it correctly. And so all that is happening is the developers are going back to what all developers do, which is a SEPA checklist. And if it triggers mitigation or if it triggers an EIS, that happens. And then 2, what about the citizens? You're talking about certainty for the developers. Well, what about the citizens? Don't we want to have certainty to our citizens that we are following as good as any, we need to get our code updated for design standards. We need to get our CARA updated. We need to get our traffic impact, which I was told they're going to do multimodal. So all of these issues need to be updated. And as they update them, when we come back to after the citywide EIS is done, then maybe you can look into having this planned action ordinance replaced replaced. But I would actually, like I said, if you look at the EIS, it has one preferred method, which is residential only, and it doesn't have residential and mixed use. So there's a variety of things that since 2017 that have changed in terms of how these planned action ordinances are looked at. And so that's why I think it's important that we need to respect what our citizens have asked us to do. And the best way to do that is just repeal, and it goes back to normal development. And I don't think much is on the pipeline. So probably by 2024, when this is over, you may have, or when the EIS, citywide EIS is completed, then you will see what has happened. But I do believe that one project, the Fantasia site, will definitely trigger an EIS. And I think the citizens are wanting to see that happen.
So in terms of timing, I'm continuing with my discussion here. In terms of timing, would it hurt or would it help to wait until the citywide comprehensive study completed and then repeal this so that we have something in place?
Thanks, Councilmember Chen. Staff's recommendation is, and actually what council has already really taken action on is that we have rolled the concerns of the EIS into the comprehensive planning analysis and EIS for efficiency, time efficiency, because we recognize that people care so much about this, and we need to be able to understand where the relevance, where the actual objective information is that needs to be studied, what was missing, if anything, right? Like we need to know where the issues like, and then determine if we need to repeal the planned action. I don't want to jump ahead because I don't have a strong problem statement. We don't have anything to take its place. We don't have significant changes, and that was, that has been studied. And so, yeah, I guess that is, and I think I answered your question.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Councilor Nan.
Thank you. Glad I finally get to make my comment. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to package page 44, which is the first page of ordinance 409. Two whereas clauses that I think are quite instrumental when we look at some of the pushback and dismay from the community that's affected by the planned action ordinance. Whereas designation of a planned action expedites the permitting process for subsequent implementing projects whose impacts have been previously addressed in a planned action environmental impact statement, EIS, and thereby encourages desired growth and developmentally. And whereas the Highway 99 planned action EIS identifies impacts and mitigation measures associated with planned development in the sub-area. And what I find very concerning, and I'm glad that Councilmember Buckshus has pushed so hard on this, is that we've seen development going forward without the planned environmental impact statement, which was supposed to give us the mitigating factors that the community needs to be able to absorb this increased density and development. There is oodles of concern about any aesthetic impact to new development in the Edmonds Bowl. But the lack of a supplemental or a planned action environmental impact statement means that development has been allowed to go forward without the impacts being identified and the mitigation measures that the community needs to be able to gracefully absorb these changes in a way that doesn't impact their property values and their expectations from when they first bought into these properties and decided to move their families and their lives there. And so this is why we have, with the community coming to us for emergency ordinances, for mitigation measures that were missing because this planned action EIS never went forward from 2017. I do think that we have to repeal this, and I'm hoping that when Herrera completes the citywide EIS, that mitigation and appropriate impact measures can be incorporated for the Highway 99 community that are commensurate to what other areas of town experience when they're asked to accept new development and new density. And that's all.
Director McCausland.
Thank you. I think it's critical that we, because these are complex issues, that we make sure that we really understand what vehicles are changing what. So when you talk about the things related to built form and aesthetics, that really is the sub-area plan. The sub-area plan sets the density allowances and sets the built form, all the structural elements. The step backs, the setbacks, all of those things from a zoning and development standards perspective. The EIS associated with the sub-area plan already analyzed all of those at probably in your opinion, and I think community members would agree, let's call it the worst case scenario, right? It's the highest density we have in the city. It's all the CG zone. So if we say that is kind of the highest density, if we're looking to change the sub-area plan, we're going to see less mitigation. I just want to make, just for the letter of the law. I think environmental documents, I know people want to get all the outcomes that we seek through an environmental document, but it is not oftentimes the vehicle to make those aesthetic changes. And that's really through a design review process. And so we don't use an environmental document to get those outcomes. Does that make sense? Like, for instance, the step back situation that we spent a lot of time on this year, which was thoroughly analyzed in the DEIS. and was deemed unnecessary. It's a policy choice that was made. Okay, so I want to make it clear, because I'm not saying that you can't make policy choices. You absolutely can, and you can make those objective standards in the development code and put those into place in the design review process. You don't use the EIS to do that because there are restrictions on what can be deemed a significant impact. And so you won't really get those required mitigation measures through that vehicle. Does that make sense? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you articulated the whereases, the development entitlement, so to speak, through the permit process, that's all through the sub-area plan. All those allowances. And so that is exactly what we're going to take a look at in the comprehensive plan.
Well, thank you, Director McLaughlin. I wasn't addressing my comments to you specifically. I was just addressing.
No, I know, I just wanted to make sure everyone.
But I would just like to, the reason why I highlighted those whereas clauses is because the Highway 99 community was being told, you're going to take the highest density, the highest building heights, and the most impact of development in the city. But the security we're going to give you is through 4079, that you're going to have a planned action EIS to make sure that the impacts and the mitigation is accounted for, and that never happened.
What never happened exactly?
The planned action EIS for Highway 99 that Councilmember Buckshus is seeking to appeal.
The planned action EIS was adopted. So that was completed, adopted, and it's in effect. It's a finalized document. It's part of the package that we have of documents. The mitigation measures are being acted upon, and that was in the 5-year review that we had earlier or last year.
Dr. McLaughlin, why is it that, and I apologize if I'm running over and anybody else wants to hold the mic away from me, please do. Why is it that we had to fight so hard with the VIA contract to try to get the EIS for Highway 99? And it didn't happen. And we were told that the citywide EIS would be sufficient.
No, I think it was reverse. I think staff had advocated that given the interest in the SCIS and the fact that we were going to be doing a citywide comprehensive plan EIS, that it made the most sense, especially given some of the issues that were intertwined with the sub-area plan for Highway 99 that were mostly associated with land use and densities and that kind of thing. We were going to be doing that anyway with the comp plan. So staff had recommended that we roll the SCIS into the comprehensive plan so we could do more of a robust analysis with time efficiency and more cost effective.
Well, I'll yield to person.
Council President hasn't spoken yet, so I'll call on you.
Thank you. I have a number of different questions. I'm going to start with I have a question for Mr. Teraday. When we discussed 4079, there was some discussion about deficiencies that are in that ordinance related to development, maybe development standards. I was wondering if you could speak to any deficiencies that you're aware of that might lend some credibility to repealing this so we can fix it later.
Yeah, and I also want to just offer a slightly different perspective on some of the discussion that's happened so far. I think we need to be really careful as we hypothesize about individual projects. I think we need to be really, really careful to not make blanket statements about either a project will definitely generate an EIS or that a project will definitely not generate an EIS. I mean, I'm skeptical, frankly, of both of those statements because the reality is that until we have an application and a SEPA checklist and that gets sent to the SEPA responsible official, we really don't have a way of evaluating whether there is a significant adverse environmental impact. That is what the purpose of the SEPA checklist is to allow us to do that. And the analysis that gets done on a macro level as part of 4079, that is a slightly different analysis than what gets done at a project specific level. I mean, you're still looking for environmental impacts either way, but it's just the ability to focus on the particular environmental impacts of a specific project at a specific location in the context of that specific property could potentially yield a different analysis by the SEPA responsible official. And so, yeah, I am skeptical that any of them would lead to a full-blown EIS happening, but there's a middle ground that we haven't really been talking about, and that is the possibility of a mitigated determination of non-significance, which is where the SEPA official can say, we can avoid a determination of significance on this project if we mitigate the project in the following ways, and therefore we are going to condition this project on providing this type of mitigation, and that's called an MDNS, all right? We generally, with 4079 in place, we will not have in most instances the opportunity to do an MDNS. That is an opportunity that is not available right now because there is no SEPA threshold determination made with 4079 in place. And so repealing 4079 provides at least an opportunity. And again, I want to be really clear, there is no guarantee that there will be forthcoming additional mitigation. It really depends on the specific project, the magnitude of that project, the impacts that that project has on its surrounding areas. But at least there is an opportunity to do that analysis and determine whether mitigation might be appropriate in that instance and then to mitigate. So as far as deficiencies, you know, hindsight is 2020, and we can all look back on the mitigation measures that were conceived of when, you know, this was drafted. And it's, you know, I'll just bring your attention to a couple of pages in the packet that are relevant, I think. Just as an example, there are several instances, and I'll highlight packet page 58 as an example. What we're looking at here is the mitigation document that basically summarizes the mitigation that was contemplated by 4079. And in several instances in this packet, you see the phrase or the sentence, no additional mitigation measures are recommended. That's basically this ordinance's way of saying it is not going to mitigate, like for example, in the context of land use mitigation measures. This ordinance is basically saying we're going to rely on our plan and our development regulations, and no additional mitigation measures are recommended for land use impacts. That's pretty clear. There is no other mitigation, period. Now, I'm not saying that there would be, again, I want to be really clear. I'm not saying that there definitely would be additional mitigation if 4079 is repealed. It just means that you're not stuck with that sentence anymore. And you're asking the SEPA official to do this on a case-by-case basis to evaluate whether a particular project on a particular site in a particular context has significant adverse environmental impacts. So I can't say definitively that there's a deficiency in the document because it all depends on what those impacts would be, right? If you don't do the analysis, you're not going to find the deficiency because you're basically exempt from additional mitigation. So, but if you, let me go in a slightly different direction with my next comment, and it's also related to deficiencies though. which is there's a version of this EIS, and maybe this is what the next version of it looks like in 2024 or 2025. If the city ends up adopting another version of this, it would maybe look something like this. It would say, here's a streamlined process using this planned action ordinance. But in order to use the streamlined process, you need to mitigate your impacts by making a SEPA mitigation payment into a particular fund that then goes to sort of systematically over time generate revenue to offset impacts from projects that might not be massive projects. So, it's absolutely true what Director McLaughlin was saying, that the smaller the projects are, the harder it is to mitigate them on a case-by-case basis, because with smaller projects may not have significant adverse environmental impact. I can't tell you what the project sizes are going to be over the next year. I can't tell you if there's going to be a 50-unit building coming down or a 500-unit building coming down, and those are very different things, right? But what I see missing here is there's no opportunity for the city to collect a SEPA mitigation fee from the 50-unit building. That's what's missing in this document.
So if I understand you correctly, part of the advantage of a SEPA review would be that mitigation would be done right around that property, theoretically. If
Analysis would be
right around the property, and if mitigation was indicated, it would be done.
There's an opportunity.
Opportunity to do it right around that property as opposed to somewhere else.
Right, because most of the time where you have project level SEPA analysis being performed, the impacts are going to be right near the site. Most of the time, it's a, there are traffic queuing somewhere across the street or something like that. But most of the time, the impacts that are going to be felt and potentially mitigated are going to be right there.
All right. Thank you for that answer. I have one more question. I think it might be a quick one. It's for you. You mentioned problem statement, and I understand there's some scoping that would go into the work that you are doing with the consultant. When do you expect that, and how would that help to develop a problem statement?
Yeah, so that work is underway as we speak. And
And what's involved with
Yeah, so the
scoping?
consultants have reviewed all the documentation over the last year on this topic alone, understanding the community members, the feedback. We have initiated a stakeholder meeting with the Highway 99 folks to make particularly the people that were most involved in the concerns around developing SEIS, making sure that we really understand and are able to itemize each of those concerns so that we study it as we promised and as we committed to in the comprehensive plan. And I want to just tag team off what Teraday had said, Jeff Teraday had said, at the end of the day, it's absolutely true that we could glean more out of a planned action than our existing planned action has right now. The risk I see is not understanding really what we're trying to solve right now explicitly and not having any tools in place, right, that would backfill it. And understanding our threshold determinations, I really think that we would yield not much. But again, this is the hypothesizing part of why we should get into the analysis and not hypothesize, because this is really important This is really important information that we should get, we need to get right. But at the end of the day, we could absolutely, as Tara Day mentioned, like we could definitely establish a fund. We could definitely update the planned action with more relevant mitigation measures based on the cumulative analysis.
Thank you.
Councilor Olson.
Yeah, so I think what's clear is that the SEPA checklist is going to apply whether we take this off or leave it on. That the project size is going to have to be significant for it to prompt there being an EIS for the project. And we've established, and I personally established one-on-one with some people I know who are in the industry as builders that, and another council member also made the comment, and it's true, that contractors in the construction business are pretty familiar with these SEPA processes, and it is a bonus anytime you streamline and take a step out. They're happy about that, but it's not going to be triggered very often, and when and if it is, it's probably not going to stop a project. I think the bottom line is that it does, by taking it off, it is a little bit of extra protection environmentally until we find out what comes out of the citywide EIS that for that sub area to feel like if we've, feel comfort there or not. So I do feel like this is the right step for us to take at this time, and for us during that comp plan process and on the other side of it, revisit and see if we can put, something that does fit for the sub area back in. If in fact that's, what seems to be right, we can, revisit it at that point.
Yeah, Councilmember Olson, the one thing I would offer to that is that we haven't heard anyone from the development community. I think it'd probably be worth doing some level of what staff would recommend is some level of public hearing or conversation with the development community. Because we don't understand the implications on that side.
Do you think since it was a letter to the editor and media, that we would have heard from them if it was a big issue?
So if this was a staff project, we would have absolutely, engaged in stakeholder conversations, just to understand impacts on both sides. I can tell you from the challenges of development at the moment, as you said, people in the industry, they're really looking to slim their margins in any way. There's between financing and construction costs. It's obviously, as we can see with our, as pretty soon in my budget presentation, I can see that development has cooled so substantially that really thinking about the intent of the planned action was to really try to foster positive redevelopment on Highway 99. I absolutely hear all of the concerns. I just want to make sure that we also understand any implications on the development community as well. Just to balance where the decision is made, but that's just a staff recommendation.
Councilor Buckshis?
Yeah, I'll just end with this because I have left out the fact that the staff has not completed the mitigation in the FEIS. And if you go to the attachment 5, you will see that. The issue I have again is, and I have talked to developers, I have done my full spectrum of research. The issue is that we need to think about our citizens, we need to think about our environment. And we also need to realize that the comp plan's coming through, and we should let the comp plan be the guiding light on this now with the citywide EIS, and to just repeal 4079. The developers already know what an SEIS checklist is. They know what Jeff was talking about, the mitigation MMDA or whatever it is. And there are other things that are coming on board, like we should include new policies about displacement and displacing people. I mean, our city is really still behind the curve on our code, and our code should be updated so that this planned SEI or this planned EIS in the future will actually address some of these things that are terribly missing, such as stormwater code, displacement, environmental mitigation, updating the zoning map, working about the traffic levels, including multimodal, providing an alternate two for the EIS, open space, utilities. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that has not been completed in the EIS by the city. And therefore, I believe it's just time to repeal it now and move forward and get the comp plan done. And then the future council can address this, and the citizens of Highway 99 will at least rest assured that they're not going to continue with what is in place, which the city has not come through with what they promised to do. And that is code updating, multi-family design standards, traffic mitigation, things of that nature. So that to me is the bottom line. And I just think we should just, and even, like I said, I just think we should just repeal this, and then you, future council, can address it after the citywide EIS and after the comp plan has been completed. Thank you.
Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. I have enjoyed the whole, range of the questions that have come through. And Mr. Teraday, one of your comments was that with the mitigated DNS, that if we, one of the opportunities was that if we went with with a possible opportunity, and this is a big what if game, which makes it kind of tricky. How would a mitigated DNS apply to some of the design standards that live in a different part of the trio of codes? So if it lived in 4077 or if it lived in 4078 for the design standards, so would we still have, how would that be harmonized?
Well, the code remains the code.
Okay.
I mean, you don't rewrite development code through SEPA. So
Exactly.
the development code is going to remain the development code. And again, it's very difficult to hypothesize about an individual project and the impacts of that project without having an application in front of you. So it's a difficult question for me to answer. The one thing I can say, though, is that you're not going to rewrite the code. So whatever the code says, it's still going to say that with or without 4079 in place.
Right.
So that's important to understand.
Yeah.
If the code allows for, and I don't know that it does because I haven't, recently studied it cover to cover, but if the code allows for discretion in certain areas, and if there's an impact identified by locating a particular building in a particular place, like for example, this building is going to cast a huge shadow on this person's backyard. If the code, and that's a big if the code allows for a case-by-case basis application on setbacks or building height or things like that, then possibly through the SEPA process, you'd have the ability to have an MDNS that conditioned the project in a particular way. But again, that's a huge if. I'm not saying our code says that. I don't know that our code says that.
Totally understand. I mean, this is the frustration with the what if game.
Right.
What if this, what if that?
Right.
So I just needed to find that, because this kind of, just kind of pings off of what Councilmember Nan's question was. What if there was some impact on design, but the design is in a different section of the code that could be that wouldn't be addressed by the EIS status, right?
Yeah, the developer is going to be entitled to develop pursuant to the code that's in place at the time that the building permit application comes in. And that's not going to change with or without 4079. The question is, are there ways that you can build pursuant to that code in a way that's less impactful? Does that development have a significant adverse impact that could be mitigated by, pick your hypothetical mitigation thing.
Right.
And again, I want to be really clear. I don't want anyone to think that all of a sudden by repealing 4079, there's going to be this huge jump in mitigation yield to the city. That's not probably realistic. But it gives you the opportunity to go through that process on a case-by-case basis and determine on a case-by-case basis whether there's an impact that can be mitigated.
Exactly. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Councilmember, one other thing on that, because these were prepared as a package, right? So we developed the sub-area plan and the corresponding development standards. You can kind of see in the DEIS, many of the potential impacts were mitigated by the writing of those development codes, such things as the step back, such things as some of the design standards that came out of the sub-area plan were written in to avoid significant impacts. And so, so it's kind of interesting when it says no impacts in the FEIS, it's because we wrote code to mitigate against it. So I think that is an important thing to recognize, that many of our assurances are still stacked within our code. Our protections or mitigations, so to speak, are stacked within our code. And so again, not speculating, but it would, that's why the chances maybe of us seeing the significant impacts come out of private development may be less likely. But again, that's speculative.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Chen.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, this is kind of a clarification question. I hear from Councilmember Bashney, one of the reasons that she want to repeal this 4079 is because the monitoring review process was not followed through on packet page number 50, section number 5, monitoring review. The city shall monitor the progress of development in the designated plan action sub-area to ensure that it is consistent with the assumptions of this ordinance and plan action EIS regarding the type and amount of development and associated with impact and with the mitigation measures and improvements planned for the Highway 99 plan action area. And then paragraph B says this plan action ordinance shall be reviewed no later than 5 years from its effective date, which is August 11, 2017. So my clarification is, did we do this review and monitoring process?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilmember Chen, that's kind of what sparked really the whole debate in August of 2022. Kernan Lean at that time was our SEPA responsible official. He did a robust analysis, and I can forward the memo if you don't have it already. That said, we were well within the threshold anticipated by the FEIS, and that it was completely consistent with the planned action.
So based on that, I mean, we have a good ordinance that we invest a lot of time, energy, resource to develop, and we follow the monitor and review process, and we don't have anything to replace it if we repeal it. So I just need some help. Why are we repealing it?
Councilmember Olson.
During that process, during that review, we weren't comfortable, and that's when we did that 4-3 vote to do the SCIS, because we felt like there were changes.
That was later. Yeah.
Well, it was really close to it. So we had the presentation, and then we came back and did that.
No, what this sparked was the emergency ordinances that really related to a singular development of concern.
I do believe that the bottom line is that through that process of the review, at least by council, that we felt like there were things that we wanted to draw more attention to and be more proactive with the mitigations.
Yeah, but that's one single project though. There's no.
It wasn't. I don't think we did
to
anything because of that project. It was what that project was symbolizing for general concerns.
Councilmember Olson, we as a result of this August 2022, we put forth an emergency ordinances on step backs that took about 6 months of staff time. And that was pretty lengthy, and the SCIS really didn't come into play until later. But it was, I mean, from a sequencing standpoint, it was a little bit detached from the 5-year review. Not to say that they're not related, because of course, topically they're related, of course, yeah.
In answer to Councilmember Chen's question, I do feel like it's all related, that feeling like we want to have more protections. That's where the wanting to do the SCIS in that area came from. In a roundabout way, eventually we got there, and it didn't get done. And now we're relying on the SCIS that's going to, or the full city one that's going to be in the comp plan. And by taking it off and waiting for the results of that to see if we feel comforted by the results of that. And, therefore don't need to have the separate area stuff done, that we could at that point maybe go back to the sub area and just put the ordinance back on.
And I should also mention to council that the SEBA responsible official, and Jeff, you can probably speak to this as well, from the environmental consultant Herrera, they emphasize that our SEBA responsible official is the one that makes the determination on whether we're meeting the thresholds of the planned actions based on the review. And subsequently, they are the ones that would make the determination on whether SCIS is necessary. It is not a council action. Now, we did take a council action, and we are in the process of analyzing what the deficiencies would be. But that determination was made by the SEPA responsible official at that time.
Councilor Nan?
Thank you. So I just want to say, I think that my hope is that if 4079 is repealed, that the comp plan update process and the citywide EIS and just the general update to our code, the development code, et cetera, would yield more a more nuanced view of how to incorporate increased density. We're in a new environment, as Councilmember Teitzel said, with the state legislation affecting housing and density. And I know that Councilmember Chen has previously stated that he hopes that instead of the idea of having to allocate all of the affordable housing and the dense housing to Highway 99, that through the citywide EIS, we can start to distribute this sort of housing and multifamily throughout the city so that we have more integrated neighborhoods from a socioeconomic perspective. So I'm hopeful that, we're very, very close now to our, legally mandated comp plan update, and that's sort of some of the paradigm shift that we're going to start to see. So I don't think that repealing 4079, and I know that there's different opinions on this, would have too much of an impact on that paradigm shift and with mitigation, the impact analysis and the nuance that we would like the Highway 99 community to be treated with commensurate to other neighborhoods in the city.
So I think we've heard from everybody, I think, on this. Is there any motions out there?
Oh, I thought there was a motion. You're muted.
Muted.
Dogs barking here. I was waiting to be called on. So,
Councilor Buckshus.
thank you. First of all, Councilmember Chan, I'll answer your question really quickly. All the city will do is go back to what the Development Services Department did prior to 2017, if we repeal it. So again, there's no change with how developers develop, and that's my issue. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we repeal 4079.
Second.
Been seconded. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No,
Roll call, secret.
Councilmember Teitzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Chen.
no,
Council President Tibbet.
Aye.
Councilmember Buckshus.
Yes.
Councilmember Olson.
Yes.
Councilmember Payne.
No.
Councilmember Nant.
Yes.
It is 5-2, the motion carries.
Very well. Next item is your review and decision package presentation. We have two departments up. And conveniently, the first up is planning and development, followed by.
What a good plan.
What's in a plan?
Let's repeal that.
Oh, goodness, that's too soon. That's too soon.
I'm going to promote you to a presenter on that computer. And make sure that you're not, make sure you're muted, because we'll get a feedback loop if you're on.
Yes. And then I need to pull up this presentation. I need to help, oh, there it is. God, I probably also have to share my screen, now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, goodness. It's hard on a laptop because there's only one screen, so.
Oh, yeah.
It's screens. Hey. Are we wed to the captions? We do that
I
first.
can disable
No,
that.
no, that's okay if it's part of our accessibility. I just hadn't noticed it before, like in such numbers. Okay, so Susan McLaughlin, Development Director, it's good to start again. I am here to present, just a quick view about who we are in planning and development, what we've been working on really in 2023. Again, still stuck in 2022 almost, and then what we're projecting for or requesting for in 2024. So real quickly, hold on. This appears to be an older presentation. Give me just a second. Okay. Okay, my apologies. Okay, so planning and development, who we are. Oops, that's not full screen. Why is it not full screen over there? Scott, can you tell what they can see online?
They can see right here what we're seeing.
Because on my screen, it says full screen. I mean, on my view, it's full screen. Oh, that's what it's the old one, please hold.
I mean, picture is still.
No, it was so it was presenting the wrong presentation. I had to switch.
Oh, you have to stop sharing and
Yeah.
you have to start sharing.
There we go. Okay, I'm there. Your patience. Okay, who we are. Planning and Development is a multidisciplinary team of professionals. We specialize in building, planning, and code enforcement. You can see here's our organizational chart. Again, I think you often see us here at council for planning related issues. We also have a kind of a robust building team that really provides our foundation for plan review, which really ensures health and safety of our built environment. We also have a code enforcement officer, which addresses all, the private entity concerns, issues with code violations, and that kind of thing. In fact, many of you have utilized Dan Gooding's expertise to address some of these issues. In terms of permitting, almost all of our planners also do current planning. So that's something to keep in mind, as many of our long-range planning projects that we have, oftentimes those planners all have to balance, current permits, and those have very stringent deadlines associated with them. So they definitely work at pace and do great with time management. We also work very closely by nature with fire safety. So we work with the deputy fire marshal on all plan reviews. And we work with a robust engineering team, working with all the right-of-way issues and utilities associated with private development. So it's very collaborative, our environment on a day-to-day. We take pride in our work to enhance our community's environment and quality of life. Again, we take very seriously consistent, accurate, and timely permit processing. And we have a role in improving and extending public infrastructure. Again, promoting building safety, as I mentioned earlier, and managing land use in accordance with our policies as intended and adopted by council. We are active in implementing adopted city codes, policies, plans, and standards, and also drafting and developing them, protecting the public health and safety, and providing excellent customer service. We developed last year kind of broad buckets of three very important departmental goals. And again, that efficient and accessible customer service is really critical. Operationalizing equity, recognizing how we handle development and how we handle outreach, amongst other things, in all aspects of our work. And then in building resilience, what can we do, in terms of advancing the climate action plan and holding us accountable, as well as addressing things in front of us as it relates to climate adaptation, building design standards, and that kind of thing in terms of future resilience. Why did that do that? I didn't do anything, it literally just dropped. Sorry. God, this is not going as planned. Let's see. Okay. I guess I'm used to start stopping. That was an inside joke. Okay. Okay. So in terms of a 2023 development snapshot, we've talked about this a lot at council. Turley has mentioned this as well. Development has flatline, but it's really the larger scale developments that we're talking about, ones that really require robust financing. The smaller scale, individual homes and home improvement work is still being done. So I want to walk through what's on this slide. On the top was the park impact fees collected in 2022. This is a direct correlation with large scale developments that require contributions to park impact fees. That was $337,421 in 2022. Now, granted, we're 1 month short of that calculation this year, but you can see unless someone has a $300,000 check for us, I don't foresee that we're going to catch up in 2023. That has a direct implication on obviously what we can do with providing parks and infrastructure throughout our city. In terms of, as I mentioned, this is a reflection in terms of the projected total issued building permits for 2022, 1788. We're not too far off that in 2023 at 1674. And that's what I'm saying about we're still issuing, we could get a building permit for a deck or a building permit. These are small scale development projects that we are still doing on a day-to-day. It certainly keeps it consistent, keeps us busy. We still have to, review code and do plan review and do inspections on all of those projects. but we're just not getting as much of the development yields and the revenue for the city in terms of infrastructure and parks. In terms of, and I wonder if I can move this box.
Which box?
This, the
Zoom camera.
Thank you. I was mentioning this in the introduction around staff time spent on permitting. It is always surprising for me to take a look at these percentages because we do a huge amount of permitting. 83% of our building team, the time spent on a daily is on permitting. So almost solely sole body of their work. 63% in planning and 22% in administration. So yeah, you can see a lot of our long range planning, despite how much we do, we are not allocated a lot for that time. So in terms of our projected revenue in 2023, when you combine building permit fees plus planning fees, $985 million projected in permit fees and associated costs. So that was 1.2 last year. Yes.
$985 million is my company.
985,000.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
I was like, wow.
Oh, my God. Sorry, I guess I was thinking optimistically.
I guess.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we're good.
The great thing about, doing this on Zoom is I can edit this in real time. Oh, no, it's on my computer. Okay, let's just, my bad, I'm sorry. If anyone saw me earlier today, you would know I was a little rushed.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all we needed.
Yeah, so I mean, and so in comparison, 1.2 million last year and not 985 million. Goodness. Okay, at least you're on your toes. All right, now this thing's in my. Okay, so in terms of our, I mentioned the long-range planning projects. Some of our key planning projects for 2023 included the continuation of the street tree plan. Luckily, the consulting contract is complete. We are just working out final details in-house. This is a collaboration between Parks, Public Works, and Planning and Development on street tree, kind of a more so of an operational plan. The climate action plan was adopted. So that was exciting for 2023. We did complete the Highway 99 Community Renewal Plan. At least the consultant contract is complete. We are anticipating adoption in sometime in 2024. And so that is ready to go. Any edits can be made at the staff level. The comprehensive plan we all know about. Work is underway with adoption anticipated in 2024. Also, key planning projects that we tackled in 2023 is the Climate Champions Series. We kicked this off with an event that was held in Q2 in 2023 in collaboration with the Climate Protection Committee. We do have more exciting events coming up in the near term on that. We have put out the RFP for the solar grant, and we do anticipate awarding that in Q4 of 2023. So very soon. Yeah, I think great outcomes on that. Excited to report. Tree code amendments are in progress and reimagining neighborhoods and streets. Certainly in progress, a multitude of deliverables under that program with adoption anticipated in Q1 of 2024 of the elements that require legislation. Yes.
Sorry, what's the timing on tree code again? Is that 2024?
So the tree code, we don't have a timing on that one. It was but it is anticipated for 2024.
Thank you.
Yeah. Code modernization is in progress. We're excited to have a few things that happen. We've done the minor code amendment packages. We've advanced some of the major code work that allowing daycares and mixed use zone was one of them. The CARA is nearly complete and is anticipated to go to council either by the end of the year or beginning of the year next year. We've done a code publishing modernization where completely reformatting the code. I'm happy to announce that really in the next week. And that will make it much more legible and interactive for the users of the code. And then finally, with code modernization, we are going to put out an RFP for a unified development code. really tackling more of the substantive issues, and that RFP is anticipated to go out by the end of this year. Yes.
I thought that you had mentioned a few weeks back that we would, as a part of the comprehensive plan, that they would synchronize what has been, mandated by the state and find some of the deficiencies and where some of our code need to be updated. Is that still accurate with the comprehensive plan work?
So the comprehensive plan will certainly be, it's iterative with our development code and definitely looking at those deficiencies and looking to fill them or change them with new policy that would then direct the code updates. Does that make sense? What do you
I'm
mean?
talking specifically about the state mandates with.
Oh, for 1110?
1110.
Yeah, so we are studying those as part of the comprehensive plan. We are waiting for some guidance to come out from the state, and so that our consultants are moving forward with the information that we have now. And we'll continue to adapt our approach as we get more information from Commerce. But we are anticipating rolling all that House Bill 110 into by the end of 2024.
Council, if we could let her finish the year in review and then questions when she's done, that'd be great.
The Green Building Incentive Program is one that we requested for funding for 2023. It wasn't supported, but we went forward with it. It is an action in the Climate Action Plan. And we are really happy to report that that program is nearly drafted, and we're really excited about bringing that to council for legislation in Q1 of 2024. Building code updates had gone to council committee recently. It is being legislated at the state level at the moment, which has caused delays in our mandatory adoption dates. So we anticipate adoption by the end of Q4 2023, but that date keeps moving just because of the state legislation, or sorry, state litigation. Facade improvement program, this was a decision package that was approved by council for 2023. This is in progress, and we do anticipate granting awards by the end of by Q4 of 2023. I clicked the forward button. Shall I do it again? Very nerve-wracking. So in terms of decision packages for 2024, the Climate Action Plan, which was adopted, as I previously mentioned, is critical that we stay on track for action. We have heard from our community members, they're not pleased with the progress we had made since the last Climate Action Plan adoption. And largely that has to do with some of the work that municipalities can't do on their own. In terms of we can do legislation, we can change our own public facilities and our own behavior within our organization. However, changing personal behavior through education, promotion, encouragement is really an ongoing task that really is deserving of a position in their own right. Not only would this position as the Climate Action Plan Manager engage with the community on these critical conversations in terms of behavior change and education, but also they would provide senior level expertise in climate change and really be an expert in helping to effectuate action pursuant to the Climate Action Plan to really hold other departments, particularly accountable for their actions as well. So meaning if this position would be housed in planning and development, it would provide a senior level of authority to work with other management staff, perhaps in parks or public works, to make sure those actions actually make it across the line as well. So that requires a lot of interdepartmental coordination. The second decision package is the boards and commissions support. So previously, the Historic Preservation Commission had their own fund. And in order to create more equity around all the boards and commissions, we wanted to make sure that we have the ability to fund other boards and commissions in the same fashion. So whilst we will still deliver the HPC deliverables, such as the calendar, we will also be able to do that a little bit more efficiently and then balance the remaining funds to the other boards and commissions.
Thank you, Susan. So questions or comments on the annual review or the decision package? Councilor Nan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. I know you and your staff are working very hard, and playing a lot of overtime. So my question had to do, so kind of cueing off what, Dr. Councilmember Payne had asked about HB 1110. At what point are we going to be designating which area of the city gets the alternative requirements for the 25% protection from HB 1110 for matters such as displacement, lack of infrastructure capacity, critical area buffers, and subject to sea level rise? Is that going to be part of the comp?
Yeah, so we'll look at the, our density distribution and how we meet our housing targets, taking into account HB 1110 as part of our comp plan analysis. And basically that will look at growth alternatives throughout the city. And so looking at balancing that, balancing that density distribution.
Okay, and then is the criteria that the city is going to be looking at primarily the environmental or also the racially disparate impacts and the displacement impacts as well?
So displacement is a critical element that's required by the state in this comprehensive plan. That will definitely be something that we will be analyzing.
Okay, and then are you anticipating that the 25% will be contiguous or will separate neighborhoods be?
Speak to that yet.
Okay, and at what point in the process should we check in with you about that?
I mean, I can't give you an exact date, but we are just in the midst of starting our neighborhood level conversations around growth alternatives. So we'll first be doing existing conditions that will, folks can anticipate that in their neighborhoods in November, December. And then subsequent to that, at the neighborhood level, we'll be having conversation around growth alternatives. And that's where we start to get into, discussions around appropriate levels of density and width.
Okay, because I anticipate that the consultants would have to be doing a certain level of data gathering to be able to justify choosing this.
They are
versus
definitely
that. So I just want to make sure that we're getting the data in real time and that we can provide community impacts because the community often comes to us as well. I know that the planning department has its process to reach out to stakeholders, but we're often hearing from the community as well. And we want to make sure that those voices are included in the process early enough so that they can have impact. Thank you.
Councilor Heights?
I just have one question regarding the facade improvement program. I seem to recall that you mentioned to us that it's a very complex program to administer. I think council set aside $300,000 in ARPA money for that for 2023. But we hadn't gotten any grant requests in yet. And we're going to discontinue pursuing that. Is my recollection correct or not?
We didn't get any, Councilmember Teisel, we didn't get any grant requests because we hadn't developed the program.
Okay.
So that's good. We didn't get any grant requests yet. We didn't have anything that they could respond to. Given the council decision to keep that funding and to pursue the program, we have hired a term limited position is going to be working on a myriad of things, but one of them is developing the criteria for that program and then putting it out for grant applications.
So as of now, we don't have any grant requests in, but we expect them to come in fourth quarter. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Council President?
I'm curious, with regard to the climate manager, what would a climate manager be doing like in day-to-day responsibilities around the city? And then related to that is what would be the impact of putting off a climate manager for 2024 and moving it to another budget year?
Yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize enough how many community members have we've heard from, A, frustrated at our progress, and B, really wanting more of a presence in the community around what personal actions that they can take and what resources are available. We really see this as an expert in not only community engagement, but also an expert in climate change generally, really well-spoken professional that has been in the field. Planning and development has been responsible for carrying the actions of the climate action plan. And we have largely been tackling, to be completely honest with you, the ones that we have direct influence over. And those include things that we can legislate, right? That's our bread and butter. We can legislate. We've done a great job at working with our facilities team and making changes, you know, the Public Works solar array, fantastic. But 90, you know, and I think one of our commenters, 98% of our emissions really come from personal behavior, you know, and basically at a personal level. And that is the area that planning and development right now absolutely does not have the capacity to work with these very energized, engaged, and dedicated community members to help us make those changes at a citywide basis to really encourage change with that 98%. And so that is really the opportunity that we see with the Climate Action Manager. This is absolutely consistent with other cities as well. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball in having someone dedicated to climate change and corresponding behavior.
So it would be like 50% education and 50% administration.
I'd probably say that'd be fair. Yeah, and I would say education as part of that is really doing a lot of those interactive tools like the dashboard, you know, having web resources on access to resourcing and how do you personally make behavior changes, what resources are available. So that education would definitely roll into communications and outreach as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Walsh?
Yes, thank you. I can probably whip through these, but there's a few. For starters, can we please have the slides that were today sent to council? Thank you. I noticed that your department now has new longer hours for permits, and I wanted to thank you on behalf of the contractors and residents. The ADUs, if we were able to get ADU regulation and stuff in there, you know, because I feel like there's probably some pent up demand. If we could do that sooner rather than later, how much of an impact would that have on those park impact fees that are lagging?
I don't believe that detached ADUs would, I don't think they would. I would have to get back to you for absolute certainty, but I don't think they're large enough to be required to have park impact fees. But
Okay, and I know you've been so busy, but I really would like to have a conversation to see if we would be able to move that and, you know, have some, you know, individuals, residents, work on code so that we could get that implemented before the final change.
yeah, no, Councilmember Olson.
To address that pent up demand.
So what's not in this presentation is that we are working on that one. Yeah. So we, as part of our code modernization work, we have started, we have the benefit of the new term limited position. That person has a background in architecture, and then we have another planner who has a background in urban design. They're working with our code modernization team to develop some draft policy to start to socialize.
Can we have the names of those people? Or do you know them? They're so new.
I do know them. Yeah, Jeff Levy is, he's our new senior planner at a term limited position. And then Nabiusha Pentakova is our urban design planner. And then Rose Haas is our code modernization.
Awesome. Okay, and then I was wondering if we could get the point of contact for the VIA contract for council and members of the public when there's something we want to get to them.
So you want a copy of the contract?
Would that be where we would find it if we're just trying to like get information to the people who are running that program?
You want access to like contact information?
Yeah, like I'll just give you an example. Marysville had done a really great resident questionnaire about how they would like to see density integrated. And I just want to make sure that I get that questionnaire to them for their consideration when they're doing their survey.
Yeah, so definitely through me, because and so definitely send that to me. We need to just be cognizant of the, you know, how much time they're expending, just because we would need them to stay on budget and on task. But I would absolutely love to channel that information to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And so I heard you mention Rose, so she is still here. I was hoping that she was
Yes.
staying on code. Okay.
And we hired her in a full-time, a full FTE.
Okay, that's great. And then do you have a time expectation for the next code update package for council?
Yeah.
Seeing that?
November.
Okay, and on the climate action manager, you know, I taken a class on that CPACER, and it's super exciting about the opportunity for people to do sustainability upgrades.
Oh, right.
It's a really cool financing tool for big projects, commercial buildings, multifamily. And so having found out that nobody's really getting the word on this, like I can see the value of somebody who knows the programs, is teaching the programs, et cetera. But at the same time, I'm looking at this budget and I'm thinking like, how could we possibly be adding FTEs? So I would prioritize this FTE, and I'm just wondering like, where can we cut, spots in order to make room for it? But along those lines, I've also been made aware, thank you to Nick Maxwell, who's in the audience, for us finding out about that commerce grant that is available to the City of Edmonds for climate action. And it's 500,000. So if that's an option for us to be able to, apply for that and have that used for this, that's something else maybe that would make it where we could say yes. Either
So
trade,
it's not limited.
trade for other FTEs.
Oh,
Oh, I mean, it's several years at 500,000. So
yeah, a lot of people don't make their career decisions though. I mean.
I don't even know if it has to be term limited, but that might get us through the short term, because in the short term, I don't see how we could be adding staff. And really anytime in these next few years. So maybe it'll get us to the point where we could again. So hire it as an FTE, but that's our funding source until it's used up, and then we have to be evaluating where we're gonna get the money.
So that's a level of detail probably not appropriate at this point here for just a decision package presentation.
Board and commission support item. Could you just go through that one more time? I wasn't really following it. On what the funding request
And I don't
is and
think
why.
I don't think I need to put up the screen. So we have had a really inconsistent budgets for our boards and commissions. Some have an entire fund dedicated to them. Some have to ask for a budget every year. Some have no budget at all. And so we found it to be a little bit inequitable as to the access to resources that all of our boards and commissions should have. And so while still being mindful of the HPC's deliverable, which is they deliver the calendar every year, we are fully committed to delivering the calendar. And in fact, we think we can actually do so. Historically, they had gone out to contract, and we have the design resources now within our own planning and development team to actually prepare the calendar. Obviously, that's something that we would need the HPC to be comfortable with. So that will be a conversation ongoing. But my point is that we believe that we would like to make resources available to all of our boards and commissions.
I know when I was on tree board, we used to just take our own minutes, and that a lot of the boards started having all their minutes done professionally, which of course is an additional expense, of course, when you add them up, because we have a lot of boards and commissions too. So I guess I'm just wondering if that might be an area that we could be looking at trimming some money back.
I think a lot of the conversations I think it's really helpful to have the minute taker. It's really not that expensive, and it doesn't come out of the boards and commissions budget. It comes out of our professional services budget for planning and development. And to have a consistent manner of taking minutes and someone fully dedicated, that they're not distracted from the conversation, or they might have a certain bias in terms of their note taking. I think that it's really important that we have the record be clear and objective.
Councilor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. So when talking about the climate action manager, a lot of the work that the Climate Protection Committee would like to see is to have it also provide the access to the resources, basically a concierge to let the community and businesses know where there are some options to get rebates. When I talk to people who call me, that's what I'm doing. I'm providing that trail of breadcrumbs, and these are for federal rebates. I hope that that's anticipated with this position.
Yeah,
I think because I could tell you I spent probably 15 hours a week talking with people about the need for this climate action manager. and that, and now is a really good time to participate with grants and having that option available for the city to take that revenue source in and use it to help support areas where we can, have some climate adaptation, climate resilience brought into this. And I think it's, synchronized as well with our comprehensive plan. So that being said, how, and I'll be asking this of all the directors, and I don't need it in quantifiable numbers right now, but in the anticipation of looking at other revenue streams, I'd be very curious to have you talk to your team, then let us know again, how many grants do you think that your team will be able to bring in if we had a grants manager alongside? I mean, I know that's further down the packet, right? But the decision packages, but if we had additional opportunities for new stuff, or to backfill some of the other things that we see that are, that we're skimping on, I would be very curious. And it doesn't have to be a long laundry list, because nobody's going to be able to get through a long laundry list. But to have some identifiable grants that could really benefit, particularly the climate action, planning, and then other efforts by your department, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Councilmember Chen.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, this Director McCollum, thank you so much for the presentation. And I'm just curious, looking at the FTE list, looks like we had an environmental program manager for 4 years on the roll on this list. They will drop off. Now we are hiring a climate action strategist. Is there synergy there? Do they similar functionality wise? The reason I'm curious is we have the environmental program manager work for several years now. They might accumulate some knowledge that we can follow over.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. Thanks, Councilmember Chen. I can see where it sounds so similar, environmental programs manager. So good eye. The environmental programs manager was more so dealing with critical area and critical area related legislation, like our shoreline management plan, our urban forest management plan, some of the SEPA determinations and that kind of work. That has become more, what's the word? That knowledge is now more integrated with all of our planners, right? So we have Mike Clugston, who is our, has really taken that role but it's really now in terms of the code development and the code modernization work. He's more so leading that realm. So we don't need a dedicated environmental programs manager because it's really integrated into all of our work. And when a major code does come up that needs to be updated, like the shoreline management plan, Mike Clugston is really adept at doing that code amendment work. So whilst the environmental programs manager dealt with, it sounds like environmental programs, it's more things that are legislated by code or required by the Growth Management Act. The climate action manager is really all about climate change related actions. Very well focused on really the implications of climate change in our action plan that we've committed to, holding us accountable. And then, as we've said, a lot is really working with community members, organizations, business owners, et cetera, to make change in those sectors.
Yeah. I know I was very excited earlier see you bring in 980 million. I'm very supportive of
I'm very ambitious.
of this new projection, but the reality is probably not that.
And so not look the same.
So if we come down to say, want to fund this climate action planning manager, and we have to somehow trade off in cutting 10% of your department budget. Where do you see opportunities for 10% cut?
You know, that's your hard job of balancing a budget. I would say, you know, in terms of, you know, we are a lean department. I think you've seen from the percentage of permitting work we do, and just a recap of our 2023 work program for long range planning. We are a lean team, so we do a lot with a little. So I know we personally in our department can't manage the cuts. I will say, or can't balance, you know, a cut with a cut. That being said, I also think that a position like this would be able to seek grants, and, you know, that they would be able to pursue funding that would probably bring in revenue that would pay for this person's position.
Thanks. All right. Oh, sorry, Councilor Nan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director McLaughlin. So I had kind of two lines of inquiry. My first one was, I think that a climate action manager would be wonderful. We are a relatively small city, and we have a lot of similarly situated small cities in our region that might also be interested in this sort of community outreach, especially in terms of the education, because it is very hard. You know, I personally became a vegan, and I adopted a EV in 2013 because I was very passionate about this. But for a lot of people, it's demystifying and making these changes more accessible. And it seems like the more people that we could reach regionally, the more impact we could potentially have on limiting GHGs. So would it be possible to share a climate action manager with some of our neighboring cities?
Linwood and Mount Lake Terrace, they'd love this idea.
This is something we've done previously, like when we first adopted a a social worker, we shared that social worker with Linwood. So that was my kind of like my first line of inquiry, because it seems like we could then have a much broader impact as well and share the budgetary work.
I'd say that the climate action plan is ambitious. We have a lot of work to do in the city of Edmonds without looking beyond our borders. Yes, it's behavior change, and sure that does relate regionally. But the climate action plan requires actions from each of our departments. It requires a lot of coordination, accountability, and tracking and monitoring. Many local jurisdictions, and again, I can speak to this at a different time, but in terms of Linwood and Mount Lake Terrace, I'm not sure if they have their own climate managers, but I can look into that.
Shoreline does.
I definitely know Shoreline does, yeah. So I think having our own climate action manager would actually afford us to collaborate regionally in a better way. Right now, you know, even sharing a person and spreading that out through the region at a 25% seems, I don't know if that's worth it.
Okay. Well, I would just respond that, you know, I think that the behavioral changes that we want to see in our private sector and our citizens, as well in our government, is very similar city to city to city. And so instead of having 4 or 5 people doing the exact same work, they could be kind of disseminating the same information. And that would be my counter argument. And this is also something I'm going to bring up when we talk to the grants manager about the grants manager package. But is it possible that the climate action manager could be redesigned as a more junior role in the N28 or N29 range? And I think just to make the argument, when you look at $150,000, you're going to have very senior people, very advanced in their career, competing for those sort of jobs. And I know as a young graduate in this region, it's very, very difficult when you're trying to get something more entry level and more junior. And creating those opportunities, I think, could be beneficial for our community, for people who maybe didn't consider government as a viable career option, and also could ease some budgetary pressure this year. So that's also a comment I would make.
Yeah, and fair comment. We intentionally, when we thought about the level of this position and we looked at the climate actions that were required to meet our climate neutral goal by 2050, we really understood that that level of behavior change within our own, within our own city departments requires a level of seniority that can kind of tell people what to do with a level of authority, right? So a junior level position wouldn't have the same level of expertise, wouldn't have the same level of seniority. I think when we're really holding other departments accountable, it's really important that position is a senior level position with some experience behind them, that they're able to talk more so also in an interdisciplinary way, that they've been through it in a public sector enough that they can empathize or talk about some of the issues in other departments. I think that comes with experience.
I would just militate, if you give a younger, more junior person that opportunity, they can develop those leadership skills.
Yeah, we have actually really she shifted our department a little bit, which I didn't talk about much, is that to really promote retention at the lower level. So we are definitely hiring a lot more planners, associate level planners, and to build that upward mobility. So really offering those junior level positions within our department.
Okay, thank you for engaging with those two options and suggestions I wanted to put forward.
Councilor Buckshis, sorry, I can't see your hand as well.
I know, that's all right.
Yellow background there. Yeah.
That's all right. I'm pretty much, everybody's saying what I'm going to say, but I have a little bit more to say. You know, we can easily do some of this locally or through the Mayor's Climate Protection Committee by actually just brushing off the Taming Bigfoot. We don't have to make it competitive, but that's a really good instrumental way of training folks on how to measure their carbon footprint, how to reduce it. That would be one way, because I do believe, I'm very serious about our financials and hiring an FTE, and I'm not really in favor of that, only because a complete climate action plan must have adaptation measures and implementation measures, and ours is just GHG centric, which is what we approved via resolution. So what I would like to do is actually see the CAP come back and be worked through the Mayor's Climate Protection Committee and the Planning Board. But the bigger thing too is what Councilmember Olson brought up, is that, you know, that Department of Commerce grant, you can apply between June and July of next year, and that's $500,000. And so I am more interested in doing something now locally with the groups that we have. We have so many different groups, and Councilmember Teitzel worked on this with me, as well as Councilmember Christiana Johnson. I mean, we really had a good time doing that Taming Bigfoot. We never did present it to council because I don't know why, but we could easily do something like that in the interim until June or July of next year, when we can apply for this grant. Because seriously, you know, times are tight and we really need to be conscientious of our budget. And then the second question I was gonna bring up is I do have some number inconsistencies that I'm not going to ask you, Director McLaughlin, because I asked the municipal court last week or whenever we had it, and she just said, talk to Turley, so our Director Turley. So I do have some number issues that I'm going to bring up as well. But I really think we need to be conscientious of what we can do locally with our groups, the Interfaith Climate Action Group, our Mayor's Climate Protection Group, things of that nature, to get us through until next year, when we in fact can apply for that Commerce grant, because $500,000 will go a long way, and we still need to complete our CAP anyway and include adaptation and implementation. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Susan.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Next up is police. Bennett, come on down up. Literally, it's the hot seat. Pardon?
If one of the attendees raise their hand.
Yeah, that's Teresa Whipple. I'm gonna call her though.
Done that before, so it's either an accident or she has the
A lot
answer.
of times it's just by accident.
She might have one of the answers to the questions for you. Like about who has what in their budget, since she sits in on their meetings too.
So you should be sharing your presentation in Zoom.
Okay.
Zoom is open.
Oh, Scott.
So excited it came up.
Oh, is it on a thumb drive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It is.
Wow. Like
Start
that.
here,
Then click here.
and then I think you can just use the arrows to advance.
All right, police department. Here we go. So we're gonna talk a little bit about our accomplishments, 2022 to 23, then we'll talk about our one decision package at the end and have time for questions. So some of our accomplishments in this last year had to do with recruiting and hiring. Our strategic plan is another accomplishment I'll talk about in a second, but this picture was taken over at the park specifically for the strategic plan. So we implemented our 3 mid-level managers and have an administrative assistant for them. This year, we had a staff meeting this morning. We hired 16 staff over the last year, 10 commissioned officers, 6 civilian employees. We still have 11 vacancies. So we're doing our best. The 10 officers are all in various stages of training. 2 of them started field training today. The rest are all in stages of the academy or about to start the academy on the 16th. We reinstated our problem-solving emphasis team. Jason Robinson, our sergeant there, has done a great job. Tons of really incredible calls with resulting in arrests and police work, including recently some related to human trafficking. We added a new patrol district. So we now have our 4th district. When we have enough people, we staff that 4th district. If someday we become, or when someday we become fully staffed, we can fully staff the 4th district all the time. But right now, we don't always have enough staff to do that, but we are doing it when we do have enough staff. We hired back finally our DV coordinator. That person starts on the 16th. We hired back our parking enforcement officer. That person starts on the 16th. On the 16th. We have had to hire a couple of police support officers because 2 of those went into the public disclosure unit, which we needed to hire for the body camera. They're very, very, very busy doing public disclosure full-time, both of them, and they're still backlogged. And we hired our crime analyst. So that person also starts on the 16th. Super excited to see what they can do for us. She is leaving the police department where she's a full-time commissioned officer. Couldn't convince her to lateral, but she wanted to move into the civilian world. So she has a lot of experience. Excited to get her up and running. Sounds awesome. Oh, very excited. I won't go too much into charts, although you know how police love graphs and charts, but we are about 43%, higher now with some of our recent hires, non-traditional police hires. And we're at close to 28% female now. So on the cusp of 30%, and we are more diverse than the community that we serve. Some other things we did in 2022, 2023, we selected 2 new K9. We already have the officers. 1 is new because 1 was promoted.
We do have, fortunately, we've lost both dogs here in the last several months to illnesses. So we have 2 new ones, which I'll talk about here in a minute. We've purchased 18 patrol vehicles that are currently in the process of outfitting. Our strategic plan completion date should be 12/23, which we haven't had one, I think, since 2019. Our department recruiting video is very successful. That's being shared actually to other states now, which is super cool. GovQA is a program online, which right now we haven't had the mechanism to charge people for their public disclosure requests. So we are launching through the work of Matter Hawley, our GovQA online pay portal. And then the fee schedule has been through all of the iterations to be launched as well. We're hoping that might mitigate frivolous public disclosure requests. So we will see how that goes. That's supposed to come out in November 2023. Our AEDs are launched in our patrol cars, our Blue Team and IA Pro, which is our complaint, commendation, use of force, pursuit, early intervention warning, is a computerized system that when we got here, we didn't have anything like that. And that is has been launched. So that's very exciting. We also launched in technology, our new training and field training equipment inventory system, which also encapsulated evaluations, which streamlined them. The neat part about putting things into the tech world or online is that it's really hard to data query files. They don't give you a lot, a bunch of pieces of paper. So now we're able to do data queries, which is amazing. Yeah, we did our first online signature here in the last year too. So we're really centuries, what we're doing. It's very exciting. We're also working on another system called ESOP, which we're in the kind of mid stages to launching, and that has to do with hiring. So instead of having a 3-inch notebook with pages and pages and pages of all the tests to get hired, it will be online and streamlined. So we're really excited about that too. We had every 3 years we have an access audit that has to do with our TAC, which is basically the computerized systems through the state. We're one of, I think, 3 that passed in the state of Washington. So very, very proud of our unit for passing that audit. We launched our bicycle patrol with our bicycles. You've probably seen them out on the 4th of July parade and some of our other city events. So great community policing tool. Really neat to see our officers out and about. Some of our other community engagement programs, that's Tabitha Shoemaker, our community service officer. Guess what? We had a community service vehicle donated. How cool is that? By Honda. So it was like, I don't know, like $1 rent a year or something. So really, really neat that we're participating in that partnership and being provided that vehicle. We had our community academy participants there. We had our 2nd annual one here this last April, February, March, April. Our participants get to interact with officers, get a deeper understanding of policing, it's a community engagement tool, patrol procedures, investigation, et cetera. So we're really excited about having that launched, and a lot of really good feedback from that from community members. And I think some council people maybe even attended that too. Might be able to tell you that.
Graduated first class.
First class. Took his time. He did it. We also participated again this year in National Night Out. We participated in our Sherwood Elementary crossing guard swearing in, which was super cute if you were there to swear in our little crossing guards. So it's a lot of community oriented events. We had officers come out to that too. We did a Meadowdale preschool visit. Our own Assistant Chief Dawkins has been involved in that as well. Shop of the Cop, which is for children that don't have a ton of money, that allow them to buy presents for themselves or for their loved ones. Probably the saddest one I went on was someone who's just buying toiletries and basic things for their home instead of presents. We do an annual food drive that brings together the community members and local businesses, collecting those essential supplies for those in need. We also do a lot of work with, and I didn't add this part on with the last one, but using the funds we have, some of which were donated by a local church, some that we have in a line item for persons experiencing homelessness. We're able to get hotel rooms or motel rooms for those folks should they accept the offer.
I was working patrol the other night when we had a lady who got stranded on Highway 99 of all places. Her car broke down. She had nowhere to stay, no money, so we got her a hotel for the night. So that's what we do here in the Edmonds kind of day, in the Edmonds kind of way, is we assist folks. We've had 3 now Coffee with the Cop events, and it's not hard to get a lot of officers to coffee with the cop, because I think we have more cops there than we do people, but people are coming, lots of them. So it's an opportunity for open conversations, active listening, positive engagement, and networking. Really neat to see people at these events and to also frequent our businesses to gain relationships with our visitors. We go all over the place, so people don't feel like we haven't been to Starbucks yet. I just want to throw that out there. We've been to the other local shops. Not that we don't like Starbucks, but we're hitting as many as we.
You're advertising.
I know. Well, yeah. It's like you see that symbol, you know what it is. Haven't been there yet. Okay. Some of the other community engagement things we've done is, or are working on, our cadet program. We hired our very first police cadet. That's Jennifer Aguilar. She was a student at Seattle University, working on her degree in criminal justice, specializing in forensic psychology. Her favorite thing had to do with being allowed to shadow our department. Her end goal is to be a police officer. Now, the tragic part about all this is she was such a good cadet that we hired her full-time as a police support assistant. So now we have a vacant cadet position. Dang it. And she still wants to go into law enforcement eventually. So it's a nice segue to get to know the community and our department, for us to get to know the people as well. Some of the additional police tools that we have utilized in this last year specifically, our drone unit. We had at Civic Field on July 4th, we did a drone demo. Folks were very, very excited to see that. It's helped us a lot with not only our own agency, but other agencies for aerial surveillance or crime scene documentation. Really, it's a safety tool so that officers aren't going into a situation where they don't have eyes on or don't know what's going to be happening. And we're able to get that intel. So it's been very, very successful and very much used. Here are our new canine. Officer Kitty Ballard was selected as our canine officer. She picked up her new male German Shepherd from Slovakia. A lot of energy this dog has. I've been watching her videos trying to train the dog. She's doing a great job. And then Officer Huang, Josh Huang, got his 16-month-old Dutch Shepherd. He named it Dog. So it's canine dog. Can't make this stuff up. But so Dog is doing well as well. So we have both of these new canine that we welcome. They should be operational by mid-December. They started school on October 4th. So a little bit onto what happened. Oh, shoot, because I can't do it that way. Sorry about that.
Trying to advance.
Yeah, it's not advancing. It's advancing on her screen, but it's not carrying over.
It's not advancing and it like frozen. I guess canine dog did us in. It says it's connecting to Zoom, but I think we maybe got booted off.
Oh, you're gone.
See, we broke it. Please come, that's what we do. We come in and break things.
What the dog?
The dog, canine dog.
So what's the other dog's name?
Kaba. It means, oh gosh, we have this whole conversation with this. I will get it for you, but it had a really cool meaning about justice. And it was not a traditional name, but it was 4 letters, which you need for, or 3 actually, dog works well.
Your officers train the dogs, or the dogs go to dog university, or how does that?
The officers go through canine training.
Okay.
With the dogs. And then they have a lot of field training as well.
Right.
While we're waiting, I can mention that it was the police boosters, right, who came up with the money for the AED machines.
That's correct. The Emmons Police Foundation.
Yes.
Very
so
cool.
Shout out to them.
Yes, absolutely.
And are they doing another one of the, is it a 3K, 5K, whatever?
They usually do a golf tournament and some other things. They are transitioning. Some of the folks who've been there forever are transitioning onto other things. So we're trying to find new leadership for the board. They'll be here at least another year. So we need to populate the board with
I
fresh.
think it was a Thanksgiving weekend run in Edmonds. So if they are doing it again, you should let us know so we could get.
I will, yeah, they've been wonderful. But
That's
we need some more volunteers.
Yeah, we could promote you again.
You're gonna promote me?
We're getting closer. We got, you're on Zoom, but now we gotta make you a panel. Stuff like that's what he's trying to say.
So on the topic of the K9 dog.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yes.
All of them are new, so we have a gap this time.
We sure do.
Yeah, what do you do without the dog?
We don't have a dog
Right,
until they're done being trained. We will have to utilize other, if there is one available from another agency. Unfortunately, both dogs had illnesses that were unrecoverable. so
yeah,
both
bad
of them-
timing.
It's bad luck that it happened all at once.
Yeah.
Nothing we could do to avoid it. Are we good?
You just need to share the presentation again.
Okay, go on Zoom. Share your screen. Okay, click on that. Yep. Should we go?
Okay. Whew, that was a nail biter. All right, so on to crime rates. I know this is hard to see, and I'm sure we'll be sending you all of this related to crime data. So we had a grand total in 2022, 2,717 of these. I believe these are per A. So there was an increase. Again, you can look at all of these data as I send them to you. There are more serious incidents. Here is a graph related to some graphs rather, weapons and crimes. As you can see, we had firearms used in 35 of the crimes during the 2022 and a number of other weapons. The concerning part about this pie graph here has to do with opiates. And as we see fentanyl on the rise, a lot of overdoses throughout the state, actually.
That's the, that's the.
That would be the gray. The gray at the top. The yellow is stimulants. So these are arrests, right? So once, if somebody passes away from fentanyl, we don't have an arrest. So the data or statistics would look a little misleading. Some things about our relationships with family offenses. Okay, on to school zone cameras. With any luck, those will be operational. I just had a conversation with Robert for this meeting. There is a possibility that they might start the first one in December. That'd be earlier than anticipated. Should be fully operational in January. There's a 30-day warning period, so offenders get warning tickets, or not tickets, but warnings during the grace period, so people get used to having these school zone cameras. We have 5 cameras that will be installed. This was after a research study showing high speed school zone areas. So of course, this is about the children and pedestrian safety and lots of complaints of speeding through school zones. So the red light cameras, should we add them, can be simply added to the existing contract, so it doesn't have to go through the whole contract process. So on to the decision package 7. The only decision package that we have that we're proposing for the budget year coming up is the red light camera enforcement systems. There's approval and agreement modification. It'll take several months within 2024 to engineer, install, incorporate the ecosystems that are currently designated or designed for school zone cameras. So basically, we're taking all of the accident data that we have within the city. You'll see a chart here in a second. We're looking at the high accident intersections, safety issues related to those intersections that are red light intersections. And we're designing this around pedestrian safety, traffic safety, preventing accidents. So from 2025 and beyond, both school zone and speed red light cameras would be operational. Currently, we are proposing 6 red light cameras proposed at the highest volume intersection related accidents in the city. I'll show you what those are in a minute. Currently, the city of Kirkland operates a school zone camera. not red light yet, program that's nearly identical to what we have. Seattle, Kirkland, Lake Forest Park, Linwood all have red light camera programs, so this isn't anything new. Everett is in the exact same process we are right now of getting red light cameras. The nice part I think about camera systems are that it's sort of hard to argue with the camera system. If you are speeding, you're speeding. If you're running a red light, you're running a red light. You either are or you're not. So it's not a lot of discretion within there or complaints related to that. A Linwood report is attached as an example. I'll show it to you in a minute. Just an example with this, as an aside, I think their revenue was 3.5 million from 6 cameras that they had for the year. They also report, interestingly, that over 80% of their violators live outside their city. So these are people passing through, Highway 99 or their intersections. They're not city residents. I think the same would probably be said for Edmonds. Here are, this is the data from the 2022 annual automated traffic safety camera report for the Linwood Police Department. Again, I'll be sending this presentation to you, but you can see just the sheer volume of people running red lights. And the neat part is you look over at the number of accidents, the reduction in accidents. You can imagine what the accidents were when they wrote 6,070 citations at 196 and 36, and they only had 3 accidents for the year. So that to me is the indicator of how many were there before they put those red light cameras in. So really it's about reducing accidents and providing for safety. So our highest accident related intersections in the city of Edmonds are Highway 99 and 220th, 220th and 76, 220th and 9th. You might see a theme here. 212th and 76th, 104th and Dayton, and 104th and 100th. So those are the proposed intersections. Now, before anything would be done with those intersections, those are our high accident. Vera Mobility, the company, comes out and actually does a study. So they actually do a mock study of how many people are actually running these lights. So we get better data that way, and we combine that data with our high accident intersection data, and then we come up with the best intersections. So here are accidents, and again, this is another chart. So those little circles, you can see some of these accidents are pretty voluminous, 57, 170. There's a bunch of accidents here in these periods. You see the high accident intersections, and again, this will be sent out to all of you. There are currently 7 intersections that are on Highway 99. So those are certainly ones to be aware of should the red light cameras be something we decide to expand in the future. That is all I have. Any questions?
Councilor Teitzel.
Just one quick question about red light cameras. I assume it takes staffing to actually review the red light camera footage and then send the citation out. So I don't see any staffing costs. It's only equipment cost or decision package.
So
We need additional staffing.
we would eventually need additional staffing. It wasn't necessary to ask for it right now because, you're looking at probably 6 months at least before we would get them operational, and then you have a warning period of time. So that would certainly be a budget amendment should, once we get those up and running. Then we'll also be able to see, how the system is working. So yes, that would be something we'd ask for later.
Right.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. One is similar to Councilmember Teitzel. So would the ticket review be possible for light duty if you have officers that are on light duty?
Potentially. We don't have a ton on light duty, or we haven't since I've been here. But certainly would be if you're a pregnancy or something like that. Yeah, sure.
Okay, that sounds good. If we went higher than the 6 cameras, what sort of resources would be necessary to make sure that followed through with what other sort of necessary sort of accompaniments that would come with that? And it wouldn't be solely on just the police department, it would involve the courts as well, and then more review.
So it would, so what that would do is we would need, depending again on volume and how the program, so this is sort of theoretical, we would need additional staff to review those, especially based on volume. The court would need additional staff to process them. They might need an additional day to just process those who contest. That might also involve us having more public disclosure bandwidth as well. So those are the foreseeable things that we might have to, but again, that depends on a lot of.
Yeah,
areas.
my thinking is kind of, you're in for 6, maybe you should be in for 9, and I don't know, but I'd be very interested to have that information. And I'd like to switch gears for a little bit, because what I would also like to understand more about and get some details on is our prisoner care budget is hot. It's almost $1 million. Who controls that contract? I'm assuming it's the department.
Well, the contract runs through the city. We don't actually administer the contracts.
So I guess I need to figure out who's administering that contract. And if there are other jurisdictions that offer a lower cost of service, and it would have to be post-conviction and not strictly, just, if someone's, arrested and taken in overnight and is up at the Snohomish County Jail, then that doesn't seem to make sense. But if there is jail housing that is a lot cheaper, I know in the olden days it was, Yakima was super cheap.
Yeah, some of those long distance housing facilities don't offer services anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I've worked through a lot of jail contracts in the
In your other
lives.
positions,
Yes.
right? Okay, so are they all gone from your experience?
It would have to be researched. And certainly, again, we don't, here in the city, we don't see the police department doesn't seem to be involved in that process.
Right.
So,
Okay. In Seattle it was, and that's where I'm most.
yeah, by other cities I was too. It's okay.
Yeah. Just, okay. Well, I will figure that out, because it is quite high. And there might be other options for us.
It gets really expensive. A lot of jails have add-on costs for mental health, addiction, suicide watch, like it's like a buffet menu. That
It
costs
is.
to just keep adding. Yeah.
Right. I think that we've talked about it a little bit last year. It would also mean getting some of the data regarding what that costs, but there is some value on taking a look at that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Chen?
Thank you, ma'am. Chief Bennett, thank you for downloading all this great knowledge to us. I have a question about the headcount and the budget. On page 77, I see 2023 total headcount 83.5, which is the same as 2024. Flip the page 79. 2023 estimate total department budget was $13 million. 2024, we're budgeting $17.6 million, increased by $4.5 million. So for the same headcount, how do we justify the $4.5 million increase in budget?
Well, Dave Turley isn't here, so I don't know what he increased in there or not. I do know that there is a union contract for the EPOA that is in the process of being bargained. So I know that is some cost. And I can't tell you, he is not here and I don't have a copy of the budget, but what the other, I would need to know what the costs were, and it would have to be in concert and collaboration with talking with Dave to be able to speak intelligently to what the costs are and what he needs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, another one is in 2023, we budgeted a search fund for Highway 99 substation search. Have anybody contacted you? Do you have any update on that?
There are, there's a study group called, there's Friday meetings on it. It's escaping me the name of the group, but yes.
But yes,
Yes.
okay, so it's ongoing, it's.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do
Yes,
we have any?
on Fridays.
Public Works is the one who's taking the lead on that when but again, this is for decision packages and the year-end review, so.
Right, it's related to police, so. curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's good to know.
Councilmember Nan?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Bennett. Just wanted to mention, I had a young community member who was very interested in how she can meet police officers. So I was paying attention to some of the annual activities that you guys do, and I'll reach out to her and let her know. So thank you for the great community policing that you do and your department does. I will not beat around the bush. I am quite skeptical about expanding the traffic cameras outside of the school zones. I can see a closely related nexus to public safety for the school zones because of, you have young children who are pedestrians. The experience in this community, I know from multiple people who've traveled through Linwood, it's a very negative perception of the red light cameras. I think that, it's a little bit concerning that we're looking at potentially turning this into a source of revenue to the tune of $3.5 million because there is a strong perception in the community that this is a revenue generating activity for the city and the cities that do this, and that there's less of a nexus to public safety. And I would just caution, the reason why Linwood has been able to kind of get away with having this program widespread is that they have the attraction of the Alderwick Mall. We don't have anything in Edmonds in our business community that I think is comparable. And if people start getting these tickets, I think it's going to discourage tourism and activity to our city. So those are some of the concerns I have. And then also, I'm also kind of concerned that 4 out of the 6 of the intersections that have been identified are targeted to the Highway 99 community, in that the Highway 99 community gets very disparate treatment compared to other regions of the city. So I just want to be upfront and share some of my concerns and why I'm skeptical.
Yes, only one of the high accident related intersections is Highway 99. The rest are not. So this was data culled from our sector system for our accident.
Actually on Highway 99, but the rest of them are off streets.
Correct. Those are the highest accidents.
That's gonna disparately impact that part of the community.
The off streets?
The fact that 4 out of 6 of the cameras are targeted to the Highway 9 community and those residents. So if you're commuting into the bowl, for example, or in North Edmonds, you're not necessarily having to go past these cameras as much as if you live in the Highway 9 community.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it wasn't my turn.
Oh,
This is so much less formal. I forgot my decorum.
So the data that we have here is solely based on high accident intersections. And we've had a number of community complaints. And I actually have some pictures of some of the high speed accidents, especially on 76 and 220th and 212th that have occurred. High speed, high rate of speed, property damage, injuries. So for me, this is a public safety measure for accident reduction and pedestrian safety. So when you know, so generally when people live in the community and they know where the red light cameras are, and if you are on Waze or map or any of that stuff, it says red light camera ahead. I mean, there's a lot of warning. So the goal is that people stop at red lights. Therefore, people can cross in the intersections. Having watched a video recently at 220th and 76 where a child and a parent was hit. Gosh, that was hard to watch. We want to enforce pedestrian safety especially. So, and obviously reduce accidents. So it is a surefire method in those high accident intersections to get people to slow down. And I tell you what, I've gotten a red light ticket. I will admit it. I have. I've done it, and it was in Linwood. I will admit it. And you know what? I got that, and I got my video, and I watched it, and I went, "Yep, I pretty much ran that red light. Didn't mean to. Wasn't on purpose. And here's my $110 or whatever it was, with no complaint because I ran it, and it doesn't impact your insurance. The tickets." It's not a moving violation. It's like a parking ticket. It doesn't attach to a driver. It won't impact your insurance. It won't impact your ability to have a driver's license. So those are all benefits. I tell you what, when I drive through Linwood, I stop it if it is a faint pink, I stop it. So for me, it's just, and especially since so many of the tickets in Linwood are not residents, right? It's people traversing through your community. And we've had a lot of accidents on Highway 99 as well. And it's interesting that only one of them is specific to on Highway 99 of these high accident intersections, but it is a public safety measure. So it's not data cold that has anything to do with any other demographic except for high accident related intersections.
And I would definitely be in favor of, reducing speeds on the off streets and the community emphasis patrols, traffic calming devices like speed bumps. But yeah, I'm still not quite there with the traffic cameras because the experience in Linwood is that the city is then quite hostile to people who are traveling through. And I know some people have gotten those tickets and they refuse to travel in that jurisdiction after that. And again, our city doesn't have anything comparable to the Aldwood Mall when it comes to attracting consumers. So those are some of the concerns I have, but thank you for engaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciated hearing all of those comments, by the way. I will say on that last note about the bold people not being targeted by those, say, if you're feeling like it's a target, you can't get to the highway without going 212 or 220. Or, I mean, you could, I guess, 196, but we go there all the time. I go through those intersections that were there all the time. So I'm just sharing. Okay, does Shoreline have the red light cameras? That's one thing that came to mind in the context of, if you could go shopping somewhere else.
So Shoreline's kind of a different animal in that it's a contract city for policing services. And I don't know, having been with the sheriff's office for 30 years, that any of the contract cities currently have engaged in that, because that's a complicated multi-agency, multi-governmental undertaking.
Okay. Thank you, that's interesting. I'm just thinking about the context of competition for people driving through. I noticed in the budget that it was $4 million, or somebody else said 3.5. I thought I saw 4 million was from the red light cameras. 3.5. Okay.
Sorry, that's Linwood. I am so sorry. That's Linwood Cap. That was just an example.
Okay, it was 4 that's in the budget projected forecast. Okay, so I did remember that, right? I was just wondering if that was optimistic. Is that really the expectation that we should have if we were going to be going this way? Or should we be planning on 2 or 2.5 and then, maybe being surprised? What was that number based on?
So the conversations I had, again, most of it was about the safety and the accidents and the data. And the conversation, anything related to revenue, was on the conservative, very conservative, low end. Because we would never want to, overestimate something like that.
Okay, I appreciate that. If somebody gets a ticket like this and they can't afford to pay, is there like a community service
There
option?
is.
Okay.
There's options for the court where they don't have to pay. Some people that they can't afford them, in the Linwood system, they do not end up paying these.
I would hope that in Edmonds that we might look at a community service or something, because it seems like, you still had the commitment of the infraction, right? That there should be something, but I'm glad that there's an option rather than paying. And then congratulations on passing the audit. The fact that only 3 in the state did is really impressive that you did, that you were one of the.
It's our administrative people, they're amazing.
What kinds of things were they looking at?
Oh my gosh, I have a whole slide in a different, I took a lot of that out because I didn't want to bog us down.
If you could send it to us though.
I can send you the original one.
We just always like to know how our departments are awesome.
Absolutely.
And then the recruiting video, I was going to ask if you could send that to us in an email as well. I know you already told us about it, and is it on Facebook?
I sent it.
Oh, so we can just share it on the city one?
Yeah, post it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. When you said the out-of-state people are it's going out of state, I'm like, well, I should put it on my Facebook.
I actually have the Washington State Criminal Justice Commission, CJTC, the police academy, the administrators called me and said, hey, can we use this? Can we put this on our website? We love it. And Washington State Police Chiefs and Sheriff's Committee said, hey, we saw this. We love it. Can we put it on our website? So
That's
Yeah,
great.
it's city Facebook and city police. have put it
Okay,
out.
great. Thank you. I'll pass it on.
Sorry, Dave, Councilor Heights.
Just one quick question, back to bike patrol. It looked like in your presentation, you talked about events and crowd control as your primary function. About the interurban trail, we're getting a lot of emails, and it seems like they're growing. Number of emails we're getting about crime, drug abuse on the trail. Have you considered like random bike patrols up and down the trail to kind of calm that kind of activity down?
again, we get into multi-jurisdictional areas, since the trails aren't necessary, parts aren't necessarily all controlled by the city of Edmonds.
So do we need an ILA?
it would be something we would need to look at into how we would, through communications with the mayor, how we would want to address that. In my previous cities, city-owned parks, we would go, or city-owned trails, we would certainly do parks patrol, especially in the summer. But if they're owned by the county, it makes it a little more difficult.
I'd like to take on that. Sorry.
Would it take additional funding if we had officers doing random patrols on bikes up there?
It would most likely be overtime, just based on our staffing. Mhm. We try to participate with on duty as much as humanly possible. But with our current staffing, it's hard to do those unless we have, in the summer, if we have additional staffing or extra staffing, we'll certainly put people on bikes.
Yeah, just like to.
Councilor Chan.
Thank you. Comment that the Intervention Trail, even though it's shared with Mount Lake Terrace in that area, but the residents, the houses are Emmons residents. So I would argue that it is our responsibility.
Again, I'm all for as much patrol as humanly possible, so whatever is requested or approved, I'm happy to put resources on, if we have the resources to dedicate, absolutely.
All right, there was a request to have a 5-minute recess. So take a break.
Thank you for your thought about looking at the jail costs and whether there are other options.
There's, we need to figure out who runs that.
Okay, we're good. All right, so next item on the agenda was we had the August 2023 monthly financial report as received for filing and is now on as council business.
Do you want me to take over?
Yes, I'd like,
Council President.
thank you. I asked our chair of our finance committee to lead us through a discussion of the report. And there has been some question as to why not do this in a committee? And enough of the both the reports and also the budget discussion items that we consider for committee were ones that relate to the whole council. So this is kind of like council of the whole, or committee of the whole, and it's an opportunity for the whole council to be aware of the same issues as we go into this budget season. So take it away.
Thank you, Council President Tibbet. Can I invite Deputy Director Dan Scumby to join us? Please.
Yeah, wherever you, either one.
So thank you, Deputy Director. Appreciate you devote your time here and helping us out. So typically with Director Tully, what we did was as a monthly review, we kind of pick it up and then turn over to Director Tully to walk us through the financial reports and then follow up with questions from council members. And the format was that way. Would that be the way you would like to proceed?
I would preface that with saying I've been here for a month and so not super familiar with all of our reports and all of our numbers. I'll try and answer whatever questions that I can, but I don't think I would be ready to present the monthly report at this time.
Okay, so the other format that we typically did was assuming everybody read the report and just kind of jump in with discussions and questions. And I would propose to you the second option, if that's okay with everybody. So without any objections, I'd like to call everybody's attention to the monthly report package, page number 4, which is the investment portfolio summary. And this portfolio summary just summarize basically our city's cash investment in different investment pool. Some of them are municipal government funds, some of them are CD bonds, notes, And on the bottom there were two biggest investment pools that we invested in. One is the Washington State government investment pool. Currently, City of Edmonds, we have 10.6 million invest in this. And that's generating us 5.34% of return. And the other biggest investment pool that City of Edmonds invested in is Snohomish County Government Investment Pool. And currently we invest about $33.7 million in this. And both funds are on demand. My understanding is on demand, we can access it when we need it. And based on discussions from prior month, from Director Turley's explanation was the Snohomish County investment pool will take a little bit longer, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks of notice in order for that fund to be accessible, where the state of Washington investment pool is almost like an instant demand, kind of like a checking account. You can go draw it if you want to. So my observation for the last 6-7 months was we keep heavily invested in the lower interest return. In other words, a lower performing investment pool, the Snohomish investment pool that generates 2.3% of return. So that was one of the questions I have been asking for several months now. Why not invest in a higher return? The government, the Washington State Government Investment Fund, and that's actually a more liquid fund, meaning easier to access and give us higher return. So that was one of the observations that I had.
Yeah, I remember that you asked that question not too long ago in one of the meetings or one of the presentations I listened to Dave give. And I can't remember exactly what his answer was. I'm sure that he has a reason for that, because obviously looking at that.
I guess I'm kind of surprised. I mean, this is something that, we didn't, I found out about this to now that you're going to have the deputy director of finance come to, answer questions that the finance director would normally answer. And you all know he's out this week. So I don't know why we're engaging in these kinds of discussions.
Well, so this particular question, I think that it's just to raise it for the whole council. We're not going to come up with a solution.
That's being asked of her. So I don't want to be, if you all want to talk about it, great. But I just, let's be fair to our guest.
And by the way,
appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you for reviewing this. Today, we talked about this in the context of the whole work. And one of the things that we wanted to observe is the investment policy is something that we would, in the coming year, we want to review that and make sure that we're doing the best that we can. I think that's the main issue that he wanted to raise. But I think the more important things are fund balances.
Correct. Yeah. So I'll get to that. So yeah, Council President Tippett is correct. Today's this is a special meeting. We're not expecting any actions. And the main focus is for us to discuss that so that the public can know where our financial being as of August. What's being reported in our August financial report.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Buckshins.
I don't understand this. I think that we should have a special meeting for finance where Director Turley is available and the council president cannot counsel a finance committee meeting. So we're trying to make up for that tonight. And I feel very sorry for the administration because we do have a new employee. And I think that we should wait until we have Director Turley who has been here for a long time to answer all of these questions. And so I don't understand why we can't create a special or have a special meeting next week where he's available to answer these questions, because it becomes a one-sided thing where really we should have a mutual discuss. We've all been to committee meetings. Committee meetings are a way to discuss things with the administration in a setting that is, a bit, comfortable. And I can tell right now that you two are not
Councilmember
very
Buck
comfortable.
says- Yeah, I surprisingly agree with you.
No, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me, you guys aren't very comfortable, but I mean, that's the point. The fault of the matter here is that the council president canceled the finance meeting and we're trying to make up for it, but I really think we should just schedule a special meeting. So I'll be quiet from here on out, but I can see your attention is coming over through the Zoom on me. So that's just my point.
Yeah, may I respond? Councilmember Business, you are correct that it's probably better to have Director Turley here to answer questions, but today is mainly just for discussion. And the reason that Council President Tibbet and I feel this is critical is because it's time sensitive, especially when we go to the general fund reserve policy. It is critical timing wise. It's very time sensitive, and when we get there, you will know why.
I know why.
Councilmember Payne.
Thank you. As a member of the Finance Committee, I am upset and irritated that you didn't consult with me. And I think that that is discourteous, and I think that this is something that should probably be addressed between the three of us. So that's what my complaint is. I'd like to have that scheduled as soon as possible through council. Thank you.
Any other hands up? Councilmember Teitzel.
Thank you. Put it back down. Strikes me that looking at the August financial report is kind of like driving down the freeway while you're looking in the mirror, looking backwards. We're looking backwards at August. The real issue, obviously, is the budget. Now, we don't have the budget issue in the decision package tonight, but that's the issue with the fund balance going negative and how we're going to address that by policy. So I'm not sure, Councilmember Chen, how we're going to blend these things together to talk about August and what the real problem is in front of us tonight. Whether that should be a special meeting with Director Turley. He's back. I'm thinking kind of the latter. I tend to agree with Councilmember Buckshot. Unless you have a different view, how are you going to blend August look together with what we're seeing in the budget for the end of your forecast?
Today, we're just reviewing August because August monthly report was placed on the agenda as a report for file. And I feels like this monthly report is critical that we need to discuss it. If it put for file, my understanding is the council had no knowledge about it. We didn't discuss it. It just filed away. Scott Passy, Mr. Passy, do you have can you explain what's for file mean?
Yeah, we adopted the receipt for filing category based on our parliamentary expert who's consulted with us many times, and it's for items that are for information. We don't expect council to discuss them or to take action on them. They don't include any, policy proposals or recommendations. It's just information for you to digest. And they can certainly become a policy proposal if you feel like there's some sort of policy implication that you want to bring forward, but it's basically for information.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So in response to Councilmember Payne's objections about this agenda item, earlier when we.
Pardon me.
Let me finish,
Point
please.
of order. My
Councilmember Payne, and folks, if, you know, this is probably why we don't meet like this. So we can have a little bit more parliamentary procedures, but go ahead, Councilmember Payne.
Thank you. I would prefer to have this discussed in council chambers with the council president. If you don't mind.
So earlier, when we amended the agenda, we have a motion and we have a second, and we unanimously voted to have this on the agenda as a discussion 6.3. So that was what I was gonna say.
Council President.
Okay, thank you. I'm of the mind that we could table this for another meeting. I am glad that we have this in front of us. I think that the council should be especially aware of our general fund balance and how that relates to next month, and in particular, the budgeting decisions that we will be making. So I'll move that we table this for a special meeting later in the month.
There a second?
Yeah.
What do you mean by later in the month? That's quite a bit of time that will lapse between now and then.
Well,
I would suggest
well,
next week.
well, we need to have a special
Notice.
yeah. And my,
Mr. Passy?
2 weeks.
Special notice?
special meeting. Yeah,
Oh.
it would have to be a special meeting.
Yeah, I mean, to postpone to a date certain, you'd have to name a date here, otherwise you're postponing indefinitely. In which case, council president can just bring it back whenever there's room on the agenda.
So it'd be postponed to a date uncertain
Postpone indefinitely.
indefinitely.
He'll second that.
So moved and seconded discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
One
Motion,
abstention.
I see is one abstention, 6 in favor. Motion passes. With that, we are adjourned.
It's already been-